We have a beer walking down. Beer walking's at 50 degrees. Well, most of it's piss beer anyways. Get a good dark brown ale. I kind of like my beer at 50 degrees. My brown ales, they're good. It tastes better. More flavors come out, but you know, these piss beers, they gotta be super cold. Although I'm not knocking them. It's just, you know, Corona, you gotta have it with the lime and it's gotta be really cold. But anyways, no ice formation going on up there. So it leads me to jump up onto the roof. This video is brought to you by Sportland. Quality, integrity, and tradition. We got a tiny little condensing unit up here. I gotta rip the doghouse off of it so we can see what's going on. Let's see, nothing's running obviously. Condenser doesn't look too bad. Not really looking bad at all actually. Looks like we got a little bit of oil buildup right here. Kind of fresh. It's a fan cycle control maybe. So I don't see a defrost clock, which is interesting. You would think they would be on here, but my little umbrella covering me up. Kind of nice that it has a little pivoting head thing. All right, well, I'm gonna open this guy up. Oh yeah, there's a screw, and then we'll have to gauge up on this guy too. So, okay, so we've got a three-phase contactor here, and this is a 208 volt three-phase contactor. So the coil voltage is 208, and it is receiving 208 three-phase, or at least that's in theory. So line 1 to line 2, 208. Line 1 to line 3, 208. And line 2 to line 3, 211. So we've got three-phase power coming into the contactor. The contactor's not pulling in. Let's look and see if we have coil voltage. My contactor coil has 208 volts at the contactor coil. So what we're gonna do is power down the disconnect switch. Confirm that it's actually powered down. Nothing. Nothing. And we are going to pull the electrical lines off the contactor coil and ohm out the contactor coil. I will tell you that there is a slight burning smell coming out of this electrical box. Ever so slight. Yeah, my contactor is reading open line, so the contactor coil itself is bad. We got to start by changing that, and then we got to figure out why the contactor failed. They typically don't just fail. I would bet that we're going off on high pressure consistently or something funky like that. Usually what I like to do is just mark them, make my life easier. That way I don't have to guess too much. And we're just going to do a wire for wire, if we can actually. Let's see. Try to pull the contactor out first. You know, I find it funny, they RDI or Colpack, you know, they put these units together and, you know, they're kind of like a budget line. They're not like real high quality. They work, they're functional. And one thing that I find very funny is they take the time to put 4 screws in the compressor contactor. But yet the rest of the unit's just, you know, a budget line. Every other manufacturer just puts 2 screws in the contactor. It just seems kind of silly. I can't handle an upside down faceplate on the contactor, so gotta switch it around. Because of where the coil voltage was on the other one, it was in the top. Typical me though, I'll bitch and complain that they put too many screws in, but I have to put all the screws back in. I think you call that OCD. Ready? Listen for the torque wrench to click. click, nice and tight. Gotta make sure you properly torque stuff down. The torque spec is written right on here. Lugs, 40 pounds per inch, or however you say that. So we gotta make sure we get it down to 40. Wait, no, that was only 39. Hold on. There was 40. Yep, nice and good. Whenever you're doing these though, I like to run them. So in, out, 40. There you go. In, out, 40. Yeah, see, this one wasn't at 40. I can feel it. It was kind of loose. One real tip though is you got to make sure these things are tight. The flag connectors, they can cause problems when they're loose, just like a loose wire. It's all fun and games when I'm talking about joking with the torque wrench thing, but you got to make sure these things actually make good connection and they're nice and snug, or you're just going to be back for a burnt wire. Yeah, contactor smells burnt. Okay, question is, why did it burn? Nothing shorted to ground because the fuses weren't blown. Let's fire it up and see what happens. 1, 2, 3, please don't blow up. Okay, everything's running, so I'm gonna probe up with the gauges and we'll test the high pressure and low pressure cutouts and all that good stuff. All right, so we've got a flashing sight glass. It's kind of hard to see, but we've got a flashing sight glass. I know there's a refrigerant leak right here because this was covered in oil, but we're gonna investigate that refrigerant leak right there and see if we can do anything to fix it, see if it's just the... Honestly, I'd like to get that out of there because that was done in a bind when the fan cycle switch failed, and I'd kind of like to get rid of the service tee so that way we don't have a potential for less flares, you know. But I don't know, we'll see. Let me investigate and see if that's the only spot. All right. You can definitely see that it's leaking at that spot right there, and it's possible we could just tighten that up, but there's a couple things at play here. I'm not in a huge rush, meaning it's not the middle of the night. Oftentimes when those fan cycle switches fail, you're in a weird bind, okay? So you just have to do that little service fitting thing. But the other thing is that on these Colpack RDI units, they do this silly stuff where they install the liquid dryer in a place where you can't pump the system down, which is stupid. So I'm contemplating moving the sight glass and dryer to this side of this valve, putting a proper pressure tap right here, and then getting rid of this stupid mechanical fitting right here and fix this permanently. All right, we've got the recovery machine hooked up. What I did was on these guys right here, I can actually show you. No, I can't show you on that one. On these guys, what I did was I took the ends off because there's Schrader depressors in here. And there's not Schrader depressors on the inside one that was hooked to here to speed it up. Then I hooked up to the manifold, got a 3/8 hose coming out of the manifold, going into the machine, and a 3/8 hose coming out of the machine, going into the tank. We're gonna open this up, and this fitting is loose right here, so we can purge. Okay, now we're purged. Close that down for now. I'm gonna flip the cylinder over because that is the vapor port. And we're gonna pump into the vapor port to speed up the process. And I think we're ready to go. So I'm gonna flip that over and then start it up. Okay, everything is open. Let's go ahead and open this guy up. Let's go ahead and open this. We need a 0-hour scale, so we see how much gas we recover. Let's go for it. And hit start. Machine is running. We're gonna let it run. Once it's done recovering, I'll start, well, while that's happening, I'll start mocking all this stuff up and getting it ready to replace. I really dig the, this is the MR45 field piece recovery machine. And the awesome thing is it has the auto shut off. So I went downstairs to go get something and I come up and it had already shut itself off. So it runs down to like negative something, I can't remember, like -6 or something like that. and then it turns off, and if you hit the button again, it'll run down even lower. It's really cool. And then automatically shut off too. So really dig that. But anyway, so we're fully recovered now. So we're gonna get into here and start piping and redoing this. Shouldn't take me long at all. All right, I've got it all pre-piped. Going to my dryer, coming out, purging with nitrogen right now. So we're gonna get ready to braze these things up real quick, and then we'll pull an evacuation on it. Okay, I brazed that in a weird order for a particular reason, because I was really close to the Schrader fitting on that, and I didn't want it to fall off. So I did that one, then came back here, did that one, and then moved back and did that one. So everything's in. We're gonna let it cool, and then we will pull a vacuum on it. Okay, so when I'm using Nylog, I use it for my flares. What I use it for is to lubricate the fitting. So right in here, put it right there, and then spin the fitting on it. Push it back, spin it. So that way it keeps the fitting from grabbing the copper and ripping it apart. Now I'm gonna put it on the threads too, but mainly I use it for this. Spin it right there. That way we got a nice, good fitting. And then what I'm gonna do, make sure the dryer is going in the right direction. Put a drop of Nylog right there. Okay, same thing right here. Drop of Nylog, doesn't take much. Okay, there's that. And then you gotta make sure you don't over tighten them. Okay, make sure you're using a torque wrench. So, we go nice and tight. And make sure you're listening to your torque wrench and using it properly. Here we go, here goes mine. Oh, no, that's not quite tight enough. It needs a little bit more. There we go, click. Did you hear it click? All right. And then, let's see. Oh, not quite tight enough. Click, there we go. Properly torqued. All joking aside, a torque wrench is not a bad idea, okay? Because if you over tighten a flare, it's gonna back off. So keep in mind, you gotta know what you're doing. All right, so those are good. Now I just need to tighten on my high pressure control, or my fan cycling control. Same thing, we're gonna take this fitting back, dabble a Nylog right there, lubricate that. It's just to get this right here, that little bit. Okay, put a drop on the threads. And make sure you tighten it down properly. For this one, I'm gonna have to use my open end wrench to get on the fitting so it doesn't spin off. And I'll use my tiny crescent wrench on this one. Oftentimes what I'll do, because I know that especially when you don't have three hands here, this is gonna spin a little bit. So I'll turn it the opposite direction, knowing that it's gonna spin and straighten out. See what I'm doing there? little bit more and we'll be properly torqued. There we go, properly torqued. And that's what I was looking for, just like that. I'll straighten those out and put maybe a dab of silicone on them in a little while. So that's my fan cycling control. And now we're ready to hook up the vacuum pump. Okay, I got the vacuum pump hooked up. It's running. I've got the gas ballast open. You can tell by the red light. So once we get down to 1500, 1000-ish microns, I'll shut the gas ballast. Now it's time for me to clean up because I got a huge mess up here. So I'll get going on the cleanup. We are at about 1100 microns, so I'm going to go ahead and close the gas ballast. So the setup I've got here is I've got the True Blue hoses. I've got a 1/2-inch connector, 3/8 inch connector. We're going to the, I believe these are 7/8 or 3/4 ID diameter hoses, the True Blue hoses. We're going to a core removal tool. I've got the Schrader core removed on both of those, and I have my micron gauge on the liquid side. What I'm going to do is eventually valve off the liquid side, pull through the suction side, so that way I can get a true micron reading. It's going to take a little while to evacuate. I really don't think that there's any air really much in the system because I was purging with nitrogen and I swept with nitrogen when I was done. But there's going to be refrigerant vapor still trapped in the compressor oil, so that is going to take a little while. So don't let refrigerant vapor fool you. You can usually tell when it just stalls out, and if you shake the compressor, it'll rise, and that'll tell you that it's usually refrigerant vapor and or nitrogen. I've seen nitrogen, in my opinion, some say that's not true, but I've done some experiments on my side where I take nitrogen and I find that nitrogen will get stuck in the oil too. So anyways, we're gonna let this evacuate for a while and I'm gonna continue to clean up. So we're still pulling down. It's at about 800 microns. Let's see if we can make it rise by shaking the compressor. And there it goes. So that's proving that it's just stuff stuck in the oil that's boiling out. More than likely, I think it's refrigerant. So we're gonna let it run a little bit longer, but we're not gonna see a perfect vacuum on this. So. All right, we're getting ready to charge it now. Here's what we're gonna do. I've got this guy hooked up. We're gonna zero out the scale. I'm using the S-Man because it's easier when you're charging, you know, all this stuff. I have it up here, so sometimes I'll start on the probes, but then I'll switch over to this depending on what I'm doing. So zeroed out the scale. So what we're gonna do is go ahead and purge. Okay, and then we still got to purge here. So we're gonna open up the high side. Purge here. Okay, same thing on the low side. Open up the low side, purge here. Okay, now we can close those down. We can leave the high side open because we're gonna blast refrigerant in on the high side. And zero out the weight so we know how much we add. And that's it. We're gonna go ahead and hit open on this guy. Disconnect switch is off, so although the low side's going to come back up because the solenoid valve's open. So all right, at this point, that's about what we pulled out of there, and I don't want to blast the compressor with liquid refrigerant, so I'm going to shut it off and go ahead and start it up and just clear up the sight glass. This unit has a fan cycle switch. It does not have a head pressure control valve, so we're just going to run a clear sight glass is all. Let's go ahead and fire it up. Fan cycle switch, keeping the fan off. Let's see where it turns on at. Should be around 250. While we're waiting, we can take this off now that we have positive pressure. Should be firing up here any minute. There we go. Yeah, 260, that's good. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and clear this sight glass up, let it run for a minute. Being careful not to overcharge. I'm waiting for the system to stabilize out before I can finish charging. It looks like it might have a clear sight glass. It's kind of going back and forth, so we're gonna let it run for a bit. But I just went ahead and sprayed some big blue on all the fittings, and then I'll do a quick visual leak check. I don't expect there to be any, but just taking the service gauges off, just waiting for the unit to come down in temp. But whenever I pull the Schraders out, I like to replace them. I don't see the sense in putting old Schraders back in, so got some new ones, gonna throw them in there. And then, yeah, just watch the unit come down to 10. All right, my system is just about down to temperature. Let's take a look right here. Measure quick as a happy camper. Superheat's looking good. It's just about down to temp, so. Box temp is 39 degrees. So we're gonna give this bad boy a clean bill of health. Everything's good over here, leak free. Cleaned all the soap bubbles off of this. Nice good connection, zip tied up. I connected it back to here. Yeah, we're looking good. I'm gonna wrap this guy up and put it back together. The whole time I'm up on the roof, I'm watching this trash bag just blow around. This right here is a headache waiting to happen. Sucked up, look at it, it's already sucked up on an AC. Looks like, yeah. I'll have to get under there and see what it's done. Oh, okay, it's not anything bad. Let me just get that pulled out. But yeah, that's a headache waiting to happen, man. That's gonna end up being a, stuck to a condenser or something, so clean that crap up, save the customer a headache. Just getting ready to leave, you know, and this is kind of stuff that really sets me off. It's hot, I'm tired, and I'm thirsty. The last time I was at this restaurant, I told them that the gas shocks were busted on the roof hatch and someone was gonna get hurt. I'm careful, whatever, but from me opening and closing it, it's now bent the hinges right here, and it won't shut anymore. The freaking door is like bent and offset. I've tried loosening everything. I cannot for the life of me get it to shut. It's totally because the hinges are bent. All messed up. It's so frustrating right now. Look at it. Even when I remove all the latching hardware, the freaking hatch. Oh, so frustrating, so frustrating. Man, I'm exhausted. All right, I was able to get it to shut, but they can't latch. There's no latching hardware. It's not gonna lock. They're just gonna have to deal with it.
Okay, we had a service call on a beer walk-in cooler that was not working right, okay? Customer doesn't like their beer to be too warm, right? They want it to be nice and cold. Ironically, we're in the middle of this virus, and they're not selling very much beer, but hey, whatever. I'll take any service calls I can get, so. Found that the unit had a refrigerant leak and had a bad compressor contactor, okay? So I replaced the contactor first, obviously, then found, you know, big picture kind of stuff that the unit was low on refrigerant, went ahead and repaired the refrigerant leak, but I was proactive in my repair in that I could have just tightened the flare nut, but I brought it to the customer's attention and just said, hey, look, here's the deal. This unit has got a leak. I could just tighten on this, but let's get ahead of the game. Let's make this so this doesn't happen again. Let's eliminate some fittings. Let's move the dryer. We'll go ahead and give me an opportunity to replace the dryer. I repiped the system. They were cool with everything. And I made it easier for myself or the next guy down the road to make a repair. Because the way that that system was designed, there was no way to change that liquid line filter dryer without recovering the entire charge. You couldn't pump that system down because of the placement of the dryer, okay? That was kind of cruddy, but, you know, whatever. So I took this time to go ahead and eliminate all that stuff, make it easier for myself the next time, put it on the other side of the line service valve, or the king valve, I guess you can call it. And that way, you know, it makes it easier, all right? It was a pretty straightforward repair, nothing too crazy, okay? You know, I showed some frustration at the end because this is how stuff happens. You know, it was really hot that day. We're kind of in the middle of a little freak heat wave we got. And it was probably close to 100, maybe 90-ish, 100, somewhere in there. And, you know, I go through all the repair, no big deal. But then I go to close the roof hatch when I'm leaving, and the roof hatch is bent, right? And it irritates me even more because I warned the customer about it last time. Like, hey, you need to get this hatch fixed because someone's going to chop their fingers off, because there was no gas shocks. So you literally have to use your back to lower the hatch down, you know, when you're going down. But anyways, I went ahead and got it to work. The hatch can't shut and lock now, but I got it to work, and you know, the customer was happy. Box was down to temp, all right? So it wasn't too difficult, just a pretty straightforward repair, like I said. I really, really appreciate you guys taking the time to watch these videos. Do me a favor, okay? I show all kinds of tools that I really like in my videos. You guys can support me by, if you're considering purchasing any of those tools, clicking or going to TrueTech Tools, using my offer code BIGPICTURE, one word. There's also links in the show notes of this video, but please be sure to use my offer code, okay? It helps me because I get a small commission, basically. It doesn't cost you anything else. And, if you're interested in those tools, do it, okay? There's other ways to support the channel, too. You can become a Patreon member. You can become a YouTube channel member. Just go to the show notes of any one of these videos, and it shows you the different ways to support it. But if you're interested, True Tech Tools is a great website. I purchase a lot of my tools myself from them. And, you can use my offer code, big picture, one word. Remember, I do live streams Monday evening, 5 p.m. Pacific time, where, we discuss these things and I answer the email questions that I get about these videos. Okay, so come and check it out. Other than that, we will catch you guys on the next one. Okay.